you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues.
Hey everybody, welcome to Navel Gazing, Valley Indy Podcast. I'm Eugene Driscoll of valleyindy.org. That's a nonprofit online news site covering Ansonia, Derby, and Seymour in the great state of Connecticut. Music you hear is from The Bad Slugs. The song is called Ride the Dinosaur. Look up The Bad Slugs online, please. You won't be disappointed. Also, coming up May 4th and May 5th, The Great Give, a 36-hour online fundraiser for hundreds of nonprofit groups in the Naugatuck Valley and Greater New Haven, including the Valley Independent Sentinel. That's right. If you want to support the Valley Indy once a year, I ask you to please donate so we can keep going. Go to donate.valleyindy.org during the Great Give, May 4th and May 5th. Trying to raise $15,000 during the Great Give. That is the Valley Indy's goal. Today's show, I'm going to play a discussion from the Tuesday, April 5th meeting of the Derby Board of Apportionment and Taxation. And then you will hear an interview I conducted with Derby School Board Chairman Jim Gildea reacting to the clip from the Derby Board of Apportionment and Taxation. Okay, got it? Some background. Derby Board of Education is asking the city for a 4.8% funding increase to operate the schools next year. Total funding request for the school district is about $19.99 million. That's a budget-to-budget increase of $913,805. Meanwhile, Mayor Rich Dziekan has proposed his budget. It carries a $60,583 increase, or 0.3%. In Derby, the Derby Board of Apportionment and Taxation has the final say on annual budgets and the mill rate. Its members have been reviewing requests from departments every Tuesday on Zoom. Tax Board has until the end of the month to vote to accept a Derby budget, which includes a mill rate, bottom line dollar amount for the school district, and a dollar amount for expenditures and revenue. So at this April 5th meeting of the Tax Board, Walt Mayhew, the mayor's chief of staff, attended to answer a series of questions submitted in advance by the individual members of the Tax Board. And one of the questions, read to Mr. Mayhew during this meeting, which you'll hear in a second, was about the difference between the school board's funding request to the city and the amount of money Mayor Dziekan suggested be given in his proposed budget. That budget could change. It's really, again, it's up to the Tax Board to set this thing, but because of charter change approved a couple of years ago, the process now more heavily involves the mayor, who now proposes a budget, which has sort of been the working document the Tax Board is using as their touchstone. So the clip you're going to hear is roughly 12 minutes, during which Mayhew explains the mayor's funding philosophy when it comes to the Board of Ed. Then after that, you're going to hear a roughly 10-minute interview with School Board Chairman Jim Gildea reacting to the clip. So that's pretty much the broadcast. The only other thing I will add, there's a new crew on the Derby Board of Apportionment and Taxation this year. It's obviously a bit of a trying time if you've been following the Valley Indy reporting on the Derby finance issues. Their finance director, who was only hired in July, I believe, is on administrative leave for reasons that have not been revealed to the public. There is some type of investigation underway. Details, nothing's been released to the public at this point. In addition, the assistant tax finance director, or the deputy finance director, quit pretty soon after the finance director was put on leave. So you have Walt Mayhew, the mayor's chief of staff, sort of stepping in and filling that role to some extent, at least in terms of the budget discussion happening in front of the Tax Board. So I thought it was really interesting to see the Tax Board submit questions. I've never seen that before in my 11 years covering Derby. I thought it fostered a good discussion. And it was just a good way as an observer to get an idea of how the system works in Derby and how a budget is put together. So kudos to them for doing something different. I found it informative. And I mean, I think the chairman you're going to hear, the first voice you'll hear is Jeff Polis. He's the chairman of the board. I don't think this question is from him. I just want to clarify that. But he's done a really good job leading these meetings. I just wanted to throw that out there too, because these are elected, but they're all volunteers. Here we go.
See here, the mayor's proposed budget has an increase of $60K or 0.03% from last year and $853,322 less than the BOE department request, Board of Education. Can you explain the reasoning behind the mayor's decision to reduce the Board of Education department request by such a large amount?
Sure. A number of factors played into that. First of all, let me just say the mayor was willing to commit to a significant increase for funding for the Board of Ed in line with his 2.5 cap, provided that there was a realignment of the educational spending, the establishment of measurable goals related to student performance, and the necessary program shift to attain those goals. He wanted to have a conversation around that and setting those goals and a process for evaluating the attainment of those goals. What got in the way of that was the increase in the medical insurance. Okay. The medical insurance for the Board of Education, which is a legitimate Board of Education cost, for some reason is budgeted outside of the Board of Education budget. Now, there may be good reasons for that, and I could give you some, but it is a valid Board of Education expense. That expense this year, just for the Board of Ed, increased by almost $1 million. That is far in excess of the 2.5% cap that the mayor had asked the department heads to live within. And so, as a result, the mayor had a decision to make. Could he move forward with his discussion and his plans, or was he looking at an increase already for the cost of education that exceeded the cap that he wanted to have put in place? And the answer was it already exceeded the money that was allocated. Somebody, and I don't remember if it was in these questions or other conversations that I've had, said, where did the 2.5% cap come from? Well, the mayor, up until this year, has been dealing with a financial system that was in need of having itself righted. And the budgeting that took place was all intended to get the fund balance where it needed to be, to restore the financial standing of the city with groups like Standard & Poor's. This is the first year where that has taken place. We have a fund balance now that is in line with the expectations of Standard & Poor's. As a result, they raised our rating. We are in good financial shape. I believe you'll be hearing soon about a city surplus when the auditor finishes his work. So the whole concept there was to look at the school district and to do what we need to do to get it to start performing in a way that is beneficial to the community. Derby is an alliance district. And for those of you who don't know what an alliance district is, that means they rank in the bottom 33 local or regional school districts in the entire state using the state's index for educational performance. Derby ranks 93rd out of 194 districts listed on the state website when it comes to pure pupil spending. That is more than any other Valley municipality. That is more than the town of Woodbridge, the town of Orange, and the town of Trumbull, to give you some other examples. So the amount of taxpayer dollars being spent on education in the city of Derby does not appear to be the problem. Rather, it's how the money is being spent to accomplish the objectives. So, having said that, the mayor had to decide how to proceed with it. He wanted to give the Board of Education something more than what they had gotten in the past. They have been flatlined the last 3 out of the last 4 years. The 0.5% increase was intended to be a olive branch, if you will, saying, we want to work on improving the education, and we want to work on making sure that the funding that we are spending is producing the results. Unfortunately, it appears that the Board of Education thinks that $60,000 of additional taxpayer money is a slap in the face. They obviously don't appreciate it. And I will tell you now, you set the budget. You decide. You are not playing to a small group of pro-education people. You are playing to the entire city of Derby and every single taxpayer. And if you choose, you can use that $60,583 any way you choose fit. You can give it into the working balance. You can cut the tax rate. You can do with it whatever you want. But the mayor started out trying to do on behalf of the Board of Education more than had been done by any other administration in recent memory.
So let me ask a quick follow-up to that, and then we'll open it up for other boat members as well. We did point out the increase in the insurance. I think it was to the tune of like $945,000. So is it, this is a supposition. I'm not really sure that you could say that. You can answer this, but my question would be, given your conversations with the boat, the mayor, the BOE, and, reviewing some of what, the expectations were or ideas about showing, a return on the investment, so to speak, or however, whatever the nice way to say that would be, where the improvements are being made. Will that be something on the table for, future discussions with the Board of Education? I mean, obviously from everything we've been told, this big spike in the insurance is probably a one-time thing, pent up demand from COVID, people not getting elective procedures, whatever. So is that something that the mayor will come back to the table with the Board of Education in years to come?
The mayor is looking to have an extended conversation with the superintendent and the Board of Education with regards to how the money that we currently are allocating is being used to accomplish what I think is the single greatest goal that we have, which is to improve test scores. That's how people look at the school district from outside. It is impacting the ability to sell a house in town. The enrollment in our schools has dropped significantly over the last 5 years. And so, yes, that's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it, quite frankly, is this year we had a very unique opportunity where we had the grand list grow by 2.5%, which allowed us to be able to increase spending where that made sense to do. And the department heads were very cognizant of the fact that this increase was related to grand list growth, if you will. You cannot have that conversation in a year where grand list growth does not maintain that kind of growth. So unfortunately, the insurance cost has eaten up that entire thing. If that goes back down, as we hope it does, and as the insurance people have indicated that it should, and more money is available, then we would continue to take the same process. But we're also looking at shared services. You have a human resource person that's full-time in the Board of Ed. You have a person over there dedicated to doing finance in an entire finance department over there. These kinds of shared costs need to be explored so that we can reduce the overall cost of services to the taxpayers. And that's all part of the larger, broader discussion.
Any other follow-up?
I just have one question here. It's Roberto. For you, Mr. Mayhew, with respect to, you said the realignment of the goals, and you said it just now, this doesn't happen overnight. It takes a good, several months, if not a year, to converse about these goals. How long have the mayors been trying to negotiate or talk about these goals with the Board of Education or any assistance from any departments?
Until this year, Mr. Santos, the city did not have the luxury to have that conversation. It was busy trying to dig itself out of the financial situation that it inherited.
Okay.
We now are in a position where, at least this year, for the first time, we had the opportunity to bring a little bit more to the table, I guess would be a way I would put it. And so that's why the mayor was looking to initiate that conversation. That conversation will take place.
Okay.
And real quick, Mr. Mayhew, you cited two numbers, 33rd in the state. I believe you said 33rd in the bottom part of the state in performance and 93rd in pure pupil spending. So I just, there was a lot of facts and figures thrown out in the BOE presentation, and I distinctly heard we are 153rd least funded district in the state. So I will just ask you, can you just tell me where we can confirm this? I mean, everybody's playing to, something, and I just want to have the actual number.
Absolutely.
Not that I don't take you for your word. I just.
Listen, I don't give you a statistics without a way to back it up. I have two URLs that I'd be happy to send to you, Mr. Chairman, that you could distribute to the board. These are the latest figures from the edsite.ct.gov website, which is where you get your per pupil spending numbers and your, I think it's referred to as your next gen educational index numbers. Now, the only caveat I will give you is these are the latest published by the state, but because of COVID, remember, they suspended some of the ASBAC testing for I know at least 1 year, maybe two. So these figures may say like 1920, for example, instead of 21, 22. That's the reason for that. But they are the latest figures that you can find on the state website. Other figures that have been used maybe are outdated. I don't know. But when
I think the URLs would be great. That would be perfect. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, everyone, it's Eugene Driscoll again from valleyindy.org. You just heard a clip from last night's Derby Board of Apportionment and Taxation meeting where Walt Mayhew, the mayor's chief of staff, addressed the mayor's request or the mayor's suggestion for funding the Derby Board of Education in the next school year, the next fiscal year. And then joining me on the line, he has listened to that clip. He is Jim Gildea, and he's the chairman of the Derby Board of Education. And I thought we would hear a reaction from you, Mr. Gildea. Welcome back to the podcast, by the way.
Hi, Gene. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for taking a few minutes. I just thought out of fairness, I'd give you an opportunity to respond to what was said at last night's meeting, if you're willing.
Well, yes, I certainly think that there were a few topics that I would want to address. I think at one point I had heard that the Derby Board of Education received more money from this administration than any administration in recent history. I would tell you that if that wasn't so sad and pathetic, it might even be funny. But the fact of the matter is that we've gotten a 0% 3 of the last 4 years, which certainly isn't appropriation from an administration that is supportive of education. But I also think it's important to point out that during the 4 years of the previous administration, the Anita Delgado administration, this Derby Board of Education got $2.1 million. So, listen, people could say whatever comments they want, but that's the facts. And the facts speak very loudly that this administration has not been one to support education. But listen, I get it. I think the parents see that, and the parents understand that, and the people in the school system see that. And the people who want to see this town driven forward get that and understand that as well.
The other aspect of the discussion last night, Mr. Mayhew, speaking on behalf of Mayor Dziekan, said that while the mayor was willing to give more money to the schools, or to suggest more money be given to the schools, because Boat makes the ultimate decision, but he wanted to tie it to school performance in some manner. I'm not sure. That was the first I had heard of that. Was that something that was under discussion previously, and what is your reaction to that?
Well, first, I have never had a discussion with the mayor about performance or I even think education funding. So for me, yes, it was new. So hearing Walt talk about what Walt wanted to, talk about with regards to test score was new. I had not heard the mayor say that. I will just tell you that it's a fascinating strategy in that, hey, listen, we're not going to give you any resources. We're not going to give you any money. We're going to flatline you. We're going to give you 0% in essence, and we'll talk about the $60,000 in a second. We're going to, in essence, flatline you 4 years out of 5. But listen, hey, why don't you turn our school systems around and why don't you get better test scores? We're not going to give you money for critical programs. We're not going to give you money for coaching. We're not going to give you money for early intervention. We're not going to give you money for remedial help. We're not going to give you any money to implement the programs that you need to turn the test scores around. But hey, I'll tell you what, if you turn them around, we'll give you more test scores. That is certainly not something that makes sense from any logical world to begin with. And secondly, it's certainly not talk from people who support education. And as we talked about that $60,000, which I thought was another fascinating thing. Listen, I've been involved in politics for a long time, but the message that we got last night was, hey, listen, take the $60,000 and be happy, or maybe the tax court should just take it back. Listen, the Board of Ed is never going to abdicate their role as advocates for the children. We're not going to get bullied into being happy with a pittance of money and a pittance of an appropriation. And quite frankly, the mayor doesn't have the political capital to be making those type of threats. I would seriously reconsider the type of environment and the type of working relationships that people want to have when they pass silly bullying comments like that around.
And then I wanted to ask you another point that was brought up last night is that while the Board of Education medical costs or medical insurance costs are going up by $1 million, which is a heck of a lot of money, and the city is paying for that. And the idea being that, look, everyone in Derby, all the departments were asked to stay within a 2.5 cap. Basically, don't ask for anything more than a 2.5% increase. And the $1 million alone blew that cap, exceeded that. What is your reaction to that? The city essentially saying we're paying for your $1 million increase in medical insurance.
I would tell you that is standard operating procedure that has been going on for years. And somehow it doesn't seem right to say, hey, little Johnny, hey, little Mary, we can't give you remedial reading because our insurance costs are too high. It doesn't pass the smell test, and it's certainly a poor argument for educating our children against educating our children.
And then, and maybe, I thought the city initiated, I thought the Board of Education was put under the city insurance plan in like 2017. Am I wrong? I thought that was something that was relatively new, that it came out of the Board of Education budget and into the city budget.
I've been on the Board of Education for round 2 since 2013. It's been like that since before that. So I certainly don't like to speak about things unless I know the facts. Unlike making silly comments about administrative levels of support for education. So all I can tell you is that when I got on in 2013, it was like that. Okay.
And then my last question, and this is more of a general local political question, because obviously you helped out on the mayor's campaign, on Mayor Dziekan's campaign, to Dziekan's, I think I just mispronounced that, sorry, to get reelected, I think, to his third term recently. So does this come as a surprise to you? You're obviously, you're the head of the Board of Education, but you're a prominent local Republican as well. Are you surprised that, have you talked to the mayor? What's going on here?
I do feel, well, I would actually, quite frankly, be honest and say I feel like I was helpful to the mayor over the course of the last 2 elections. For certain. I think you raised an excellent point. I will tell you that neither the mayor or his chief of staff has spoken to me about what they were going to recommend for the Derby Board of Education, either before they recommended it, since they recommended it. So I've had no discussions with the mayor about education funding. I've had no discussions with the chief of staff about education funding. I would have expected, it doesn't even matter that it helped from an election perspective. I just think if you want to work with people and you want to foster positive work relationships, you talk to people. You don't bully them. You don't tell them that if they're not happy with the $60,000 you're getting, they don't get anything. That's just not how you work with people. That's not how you foster positive work relationships. So do I think it would have been nice if they spoke to me? I don't know if working on a political campaign earned me anything. I will tell you that just human decency and trying to work with people to better our town, I would have expected some level of discussion before I read about things in the paper.
Yeah, and I should just clarify, I wasn't trying to imply that you working on the mayor's campaign, then he owed you something. I just thought in terms of ideology towards education and education funding, you and the mayor would be on the same page since you helped his campaign, just to clarify.
No, and that's fair. I mean, I hear you. I didn't mean to imply that either. I've had no discussions with the mayor. I don't know how much we've talked since the election, truthfully. But certainly not on any educational budget or educational issue, nor have I had any discussions with the chief of staff. And listen, I mean, I think people have to look for themselves to see if they think that the tenor and the level of civility has, what degree the level of civility has been in this town. But again, just as the chairman of the Board of Education, you would think that I would have been, there's some level of civility by actually having discussions with people before you start bullying them and pushing them around at tax board meetings, for certain.
Okay. That was Jim Gildea, as you know, and that's it. That is it for this week's Navel Gazing. I have an interview coming up. I recorded last week. It's really good, I think, with Thomas Hennick, the public education officer for the FOI Commission. I meant to post it a week ago, but the way news has been in the Valley, I didn't get a chance to. Thanks for listening.
For hundreds of years we brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues.